And a good evening, everybody. Chris McDonald with you on a McFiles Thursday night. We are grateful to have everybody with us tonight, and good to see our dear friend James Akers on the line with us tonight. And he's not going to be with us next week, so we're going to keep him here till 3 o'clock in the morning so we can get everything, drag every ounce of information out of him we can before he takes off for the parts unknown. Good to see you tonight. How are you, buddy?
Doing fine, Chris. How are you?
I'm doing great. Baseball season's around the corner. Now we're having a cold snap down here before that happened, so winter's not let go of the heels. But I'm doing good tonight. It's good to see you, and we've had a good week of shows, and you always make each show we have with you very interesting and intriguing, and it's always good to have you, buddy, and grateful you're with us tonight.
Good being with you and your audience.
Listen, yeah, I want to start out tonight talking about the Iranian Operation Epic Fury. We've had some developments, James, today, and I want to talk to you about what happened. It looks like they hit, the Iranians did, these suicide boats have made an impact on some oil tankers in the Straits of Hormuz. Oil prices are going out of the skyrocketing tonight. Stocks are down, and it just seems like we're having a struggle getting control of that strait. And the other thing, Israel today suffered a pretty direct hit. I was there at the Tomb of Jesus, where the spot is where you walk. They believe where he was buried, and there was a Iranian rocket attack that hit there this morning, and there was also an attempt, and one rocket almost took out the Dome of the Rock. And there's some prophetic things about that we may get into tonight a little bit. And then I understand tonight late that Hezbollah has started an all-out blitz in Tel Aviv and Jerusalem, and Israel is going into
a few things out, and it's not like Iran hasn't had some time to think about this and how they were going to respond, and how to protect some assets so that they could respond. So we're starting to just see that, and I think the initial thoughts of this thing being just a super quick surgical. They're just going to bend over and grab their ankles and surrender is not going to happen.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to happen, and I think that was what I think, like you said, a lot of people thought that it was going to be that the Iranians would crumble under the American force. And James, it was wishful thinking, but I don't think anybody that I heard in the military was saying that, and you sure wasn't. And we're going to have you and Brad on maybe when you get back on a panel. But I think the intelligence people that saw this knew that this was not going to be just an easy peasy thing, did they?
No, and we're just starting to see. And then I think the danger throughout was that the American people historically. I'm not just talking about today's liberals, but historically, we don't like to be bogged down in protracted warfare. The only truly popular war in this country's history was World War II, and had the Japanese not hit Pearl Harbor with a sneak attack, or at least it was couched that way, that war wouldn't have enjoyed the measure of popularity that it had. And so a lot of this is to be expected. Also to be expected is the overwhelming American technical superiority when it comes to warfare in the modern age, and the awful thing about war is that there are casualties, and we're starting to see that, and we've also seen that there's just very little public appetite for for these types of casualties, and I think that was a huge part of the early war planning. There's also sort of boundaries to this war that I really find interesting. In the initial days, the Iranians were reluctant to hit desalinization plants, which are several along the Gulf, and that's the true Achilles heel of the Emirates. And the Iranians showed an initial reluctance to hit those, and the reverse side of that is that we've been really reluctant to hit Karg Island, the oil facilities at Karg Island, which would, cripple Iran for decades if by just an afternoon of bombing we could do that. But we've been reluctant to do it, probably because of the Chinese. And then also, prior to this war, Tehran was desperate for water, was running out of water. We have not hit sort of the water plants either. We have done war in the typical American way, not to hurt anybody's feelings, and yet destroy what we can destroy. And so, it'll be interesting to see whether the American planners take the gloves off when it comes to that sort of thing in the days ahead.
Yeah. Have you been pleased with the response of Trump? What is, from an intelligence standpoint? Look, nobody likes. I think there's an uneasiness in the country about it. I think even the liberal. Look, Bill Maher said it the other night. I don't agree with half the thing Bill Maher says, but I tend to side with him on this, to the point that we're not putting boots on the ground and getting involved in another Iraq. I've been okay with what we're trying to do because I think that we've underestimated Iran's strength, and I think it's time that we address this head on. I don't think any other president would do it. Every president in the past, James, has spoken a big game, but they've just not done anything. And Trump did something, and he's doing something. And when you do something, you get criticized for it, and you get mocked, and you get the things said about you that's being said about you out there on the internet. I don't think Trump cares, and I wouldn't care about it either. It's a bunch of wasteless breath people that just have nothing to do but Monday morning quarterback, when they don't understand that we were facing a mortal enemy that has been waging war on this country for 50 years. And but overall, have you been pleased with the way we've handled things militarily? And then are you okay with how he's handling things diplomatically, working with Israel? And I have to say, the Arab world has stayed with us so far, and I think that we start getting boots on the ground, that may change. But I've been okay with what I've seen. There is an uneasiness to this, though, and I think tonight was a wake-up call that, like we've been talking since the beginning of the show, this ain't going to be over tomorrow.
No. There just a couple quick observations. I think Trump and the other planners were sort of allured by the capabilities, the technical capabilities of strike packages and this, that, and the other, and we've ran through a lot of our best stuff, and in a hurry. And on this show, I pointed to the danger of that. We simply do not have the inventory for a protracted war of this 24-hour bombing.
Correct.
With endless amount of targets. We have to realize that there's a limit to that. And then when it comes to the Gulf states, they're sort of on the sideline rooting us on, but they're very reluctant to take an overly active combat role in the region. And so you see that their posture is primarily defensive. There are no Saudi or UAE strike packages going into Iran, for instance, and so it'll be interesting to see if the conflict matures to include that. They're willing to throw the Israelis and the Americans under the bus, and it gives them plausible deniability later on when they have to fashion some sort of agreement with the Iranians in the neighborhood. And then the third thing I think we overestimated the ability of the civilian populace to rise up with no weapons whatsoever, having had their leaders absolutely decimated in this last round to the tune of, of 50,000, perhaps as many as 50,000 uh, uh, people incarcerated or eliminated, which were the leaders of the resistance that we hoped would happen right away, and it just hasn't happened.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, and I think Bibi Netanyahu tonight, he was on the air, basically telling the Iranian people that look, we're fighting for you here, but you've got to rise up. And I think that there was a sense in his speech they're not rising up, and I think that's an excellent point that perhaps we did overestimate the people. And it's not that we are sad because look, James, 46,000 of these people have been slaughtered. And you would think, having had that happen, they would be more than willing to, rise up and break free of these mullahs. And this is what concerns me going forward. And I'll get your opinion about this. Do you foresee any possibility, because I do, that we may not get the Iran that we want in the West after all this is done? I mean, the people still have got to make a decision whether they still want to stay under the jackbooted hill of Islam or get free of that. And I'm going to be frank with you. I don't put a lot of stock in the fact that people are going to be making a great change in Iran. We may get a friendlier government toward us, but I will tell you something. If we think that they're going to be a democracy, that ship sailed. We've already played that game, and we failed miserably in Iraq doing it. And I don't think we want to go through this again in Iran, do we?
No. And people are just so short-sighted. They have such a shallow view of history. When we went in Iraq, for instance, went in the first time, the Iraqis thought that there would be meaningful change, and they got absolutely crunched.
Yes.
And so the war planners, and I know because I talked to them, we had another operation, and so they came to us with sort of a lessons learned. They were going to go back into Iraq a second time, and I said, it's not that you can't go in there and win what you're doing, but they were counting on the people based on the first go round rising up and just warmly accepting American troops and this, that, and the other. And they said, wait a minute, we trusted in you before, and you guys left us holding the bag.
Exactly right.
We had family members that were slaughtered and killed because we trusted you guys. And we're not going to do it again. And so from Obama administration onwards, we have given them, held out sort of a false hope, in this case, to the Iranian people. And now we expect them to put everything on the line. for a promise that will help them. How many times have we failed to deliver on this expectation of a promise in these countries in the Middle East? And now we're paying the cost for that.
I can't agree more, and I think that is a real issue there. We could talk on about the Israeli situation. Do you find it? How do you think the Israelis are handling this? Because I think they're facing another. They're war weary. They're war torn. They've already dealt with this for 2.5 years since Hamas in 23. And now they're finding themselves on the front lines of this war. Do you think Israel has handled herself well?
Well, there's could they have done things better? Perhaps, but they again there was the false hope that they had mortally wounded Hezbollah to the point where it would not be a near-term problem for them, and it has turned out that they've been more resilient than the Israelis thought, I believe, and that is not to diminish the tremendous intel capabilities of Mossad and the military capabilities of the IDF, but these guys are buried deep, and they have a culture of death.
Yes.
There's a culture of death. They don't care how many people they lose. They don't care if they bury and put at risk schools and hospitals by burying their military things underneath them. They don't care, and so we and the Israelis just have a hard time dealing with that. I think, quite honestly, the Israelis deal with it better than we do. Because it's an existential all or nothing for them. They can't afford to lose.
Yeah, I'm with you there. We were having some network issues at the beginning, and folks were aware of them, and we know that we cut out earlier. We were talking about the Dome of the Rock. One of those missiles just missed the Dome of the Rock today. I got word from Israel this afternoon, and I saw the report on X that one of the missiles hit the place where Jesus was buried. In other words, the burial tomb. We were just there. I stood there. I looked at that picture, and it looked very familiar. And I said, I was there in January, right there. And but I want to talk about that Dome of the Rock. That's very prophetic, James, because people that like myself, we're Bible teachers, and we believe in a pre-tribulation rapture. I know not everybody does, but I do. I believe Israel's still got a plan in the heart of God, or God has a plan for Israel, I should say. And I do believe that the temple is going to be rebuilt, just like the Bible says too. But right now, that Temple Mount where they would build that sits on that Dome of the Rock that's controlled by three religions. And for that to take place, that dome is either going to have to be let go of by the Palestinians, or something's going to have to happen. And I've always believed that a missile attack or a natural act of nature of God, a war that would do exactly what this missile almost did today, there would be something that could take place that would basically take it out of the hands of everybody, that the dome would be gone. It came very close to happening today, and that's very prophetic to me, because Iran's not playing, and they're targeting these places. These missiles are targeted to go on these historic sites. Do you believe that the Iranians still have that capability right now to target these places like that?
Well, it's hard to tell, with what the Iranians have left in their inventory and what they can get in the air. It's hard to tell whether their targets are precise, or whether they're just with the modern cluster munitions and things like that. whether some things are just sort of accidentally hit, and then it becomes providential what happens. But there is that's one other layer that just makes this so complex. There has been a war that has lasted for centuries between Sunni and Shiite, and and so there's no love lost if the Iranians launch a bunch of missiles and it hits Sunni targets. There's that layer of this conflict as well, and so the Dome of the Rock is the third most
Holiest site.
actually the mosque next to it, because Dome of the Rock is not a true mosque.
That's very true.
But the mosque that is on what that very small area in Jerusalem that is the most contested piece of property in history, that's basically now controlled by the Sunnis, and to achieve a reconciliation between Jews and the Sunnis during the 6-Day War, when Israel went in and controlled all those holy sites, they turned it back over to the Sunnis, and so what I'm saying is Dome of the Rock and the mosque on the holy site, those are legitimate targets, because, as we've talked about before, what you have is an apocalyptic mindset that the Shiites have, and the more complex, the more losses they take, the more chaos there is in the region. They believe the closer they're coming to the days of the Mahdi, which is hidden someplace and will rise up and usher in the final days of a glorious Islam. And so these things are just spiritual complexities that for the most part, in our pursuit of just raw power and technological advantage, we just don't even see coming.
Well, there's a myriad of possibilities, a myriad of theories, a myriad of things that could happen, might happen. We just don't know what's going to happen. But James, this whole situation with Iran, it's preparing the way for some future events that have been basically foretold since prophets were prophesying 3,500 years ago. It's not, and please, folks, hold your questions till the end. I promise we will get to your questions when we finish with James tonight. But what I see happening is a realignment of the Middle East, because I think that the Lord is using these events. This is where America's role actually is going to play a role in Bible prophecy, perhaps, that we are going to be used by God to do what we're doing, like we're doing now, and weaken Iran. And it's going to open the door, though, for greater things. And some of these things are not going to be good. I know people are again, I'll go back to what I said a while ago, and I'll get your opinion about this. Do you feel the same unease that I do, that it's like we're not being, maybe they don't know, maybe they can't tell us, but, you've sort of hinted at this tonight, that we underestimated the Iranians' capacity to do some things. Do you feel that same uneasiness that I do, that there's something out there that I just, James, I feel something's about to break, and I have not even brought this up tonight. Look, I don't know if people have realized it. We had another terrorist attack today in Michigan. We had one in Virginia. We had a terrorist attack in New York City over the weekend. An ISIS bomber that basically pledged his allegiance to ISIS almost detonated a bomb in the downtown heart of the city. And of course, we've had this Michigan thing was a mosque. You had the Austin, Texas shooting of the guy outside the bar. So we've had 4 attacks that have been linked to terrorism since this all began. And do you feel the same uneasiness that there is the possibility that there could be major things that go on in our own country, even though, thank God, there's not been a major loss of life, but people have died in these attacks, and that they're planning something bigger for us here?
I think there's that potential because we, in point of fact, do not know how many. When the borders were wide open, we have no idea who came across, from where, what kind of cells and organizations they're setting up. Especially if they don't use like online or other easily traceable measures to communicate. If they use an old fashioned like courier system because they want to preserve the sanctity of their cells and wait for the most opportune time to wreak havoc in this country, is there a potential that there's a layer of that out there? And it's going to happen in the next 1 to 2 to 3 years. I think it's certainly there. I hope I'm completely wrong. I'm hoping that all of our law enforcement, our surveillance, our monitoring systems have a real good fix on the most dangerous of these groups. I am afraid that we do not. And there's nobody that will say that.
No, there's not. And James, not only that way, not they won't say it, but you've got a left-wing media in this country that's pulling for our enemies. They're promulgating. Baghdad Bob is turning over in his grave right now, laughing at what he sees the American media doing. You had CNN, the crap news network, put the Iranian spokesperson, who's nothing but a propaganda machine of doing nothing but lying, let her speak for 4 minutes today, doing nothing but spewing anti-Israel, anti-American hate. And they won't even cover President Trump's press conferences when he's on. And yet they do this. To me, that's treasonous behavior. And that's what I think, they're rooting for our enemies. And then you've got the mayor of New York City. And, whenever somebody that's in office, or they're a senator, or they're a governor, or they're a mayor, and they want to lead the city staff or the staff of their office in prayer, then all of a sudden, well, no, we can't do that. We've got separation of church and state. And then you've got Muammar bin Dami, or whatever his name is, basically today holding an Islamic love fest in the councils of the government. They're sitting around holding hands, praying to Allah. And of course, I guess separation of state don't matter when it comes to Islam, but it sure does matter when it comes to Christianity. James, you've got people in this country tonight, brother, that's pulling against us. They're hoping we go down.
Yes, and that has been festering and growing, especially on college and university campuses for a long time, and it's just sad. I mean, my dad was a part of the greatest generation, and all of the things that this country rallied to, and the values that we held dear, are just they just seem to be lost these days, and perhaps you and I are just sort of dinosaurs looking at the snowflakes that are falling, but.
Oh, we got some snowflakes that are falling, but we got some of them that have suits on and dresses, and they're a bunch of can I use a bad word on my show tonight? They're a bunch of idiot, brainless snowflakes. And it's one thing to be a snowflake. And, it's like Kennedy says, the senator from Louisiana, life is hard, but it's harder when you're stupid. And I wish they'd pick a struggle to either be dumb or stupid or both or just be ignorant. I would take one of them, but not to be
Yes.
all of it, and not to be traitorous. It burns me up, and my wife's listening, so I'm gonna have to behave myself tonight. So I'll just I just wanna let it all hang out right now. I'm telling you, because James, it frustrates me that we've got people in this country, brother. We got news outlets that are putting this crap on their networks that are basically traitorous.
Yes. And they've, and the shame of it is, and a part of this is the what happens when you have a society that is so polarized as ours is. 50% of the people absolutely don't trust anything that the media puts out there because they have just been so wrong so often. You have a media that no longer gives news for people to make their own decision because they all assume that the education system has just turned out a bunch of idiots, and so all they give them is spin. There's no news anymore. It's all interpretation and narrative the way they want to twist it. And I'm talking about it's happening also on the right,
Without a
and
doubt.
you know it, and you know
Without
it.
a doubt. It is. No, it's right
And
and left, brother. And I don't give the Republicans a pass one bit. I don't give look, some of these right wing so called conservatives have been much uglier with that than even the left has. And one thing about the left, you can say what you want to about them. At least you know where they're coming from. At least they're not hypocrites about it. Hey, you know what you're getting with them. They don't hide it. They hate America. They hate freedom. They hate the republic. They hate democracy. They hate capitalism. At least they're honest about it. I'd much rather you be honest and just call yourself a dud and a hypocrite than to go out there and say, I'm fighting for American values. I love my country. And then you stab us in the back with the crap you do on the internet next. It sort of gets old, don't it? At some point.
it does. It does. But it is the world that we live in. And I am just so thankful that the God I serve isn't shaking on the throne, and Chris, he has a remnant that
Always.
that in the last days will be equipped to testify of what is to come in terms of godliness, and so as we see all of this happening, there is also a tremendous revival that's happening on some college campuses, and there are these ministries, and Charlie Kirk and his organization was just sort of the tipping point of that. And where we sometimes get so frustrated with all of this evil that's going on, there are also some. God is not without being able to equip His own to stand in these final days, and
Absolutely.
I'm so excited about some young people that I know that are taking up that mantle and moving forward with it. While we just see sort of the dark edges of things and just get so frustrated. But you know, there's another thing that's going on, and what's going to happen is those people that are lukewarm, that have a foot in both camps, that think they could serve God and man at the same time, they are going to be forced to take a side, and in these days that are to come, it is going to cost you something to do the right thing, to be able to say the right thing, at a moment of God's choosing, instead of a moment of human anger. You know what I'm
Oh,
saying?
absolutely, buddy. No, absolutely.
And
I do know what you're saying.
and
You're right.
and there is and that is coming as well. I mean, if you look back at history, I mean, in the early church ages, when Rome declared Christianity, to be illegal, and Emperor Nero was burning people along the Appian Way just as sort of light posts, and how the church was able to triumph in that day. And what we are seeing now, there's gonna be a church, and it's not a building. It's going to be comprised of this very narrow elite that God is going to call out and specially equip for the last days. And no matter how bad things get, you know, there will be a group of people that will be blessed and favored by God. And as things get bad, this group, God is just going to do some amazing things. There are, I mean, I get as frustrated as anybody else about what's coming, but also I am just really excited because God is just going to do some
I'll agree.
absolutely incredible things. All of this that we're talking about in the Middle East is to set the stage, and you have said it 100 times, is to set the stage for what is to come.
What is to come?
For God to make the final revelation, and for Christ to come back again, and God's time clock centers around the Middle East, and that's one thing. I know I served in the government when Obama was desperately trying to shift the emphasis from the Middle East to Asia, and we can never get away from it. It's like the Middle East is just the focal point of God's attention, and so we are seeing that now. We're uneasy with it because we don't control, because it's a spiritual thing, we don't control all the metrics, even with our tremendous military firepower, our technological superiority, all of those things. We get frustrated. How are these people still hanging on, and why are these problems still existing in the Straits of Hormuz if we have total air superiority, and if we completely control the battlefield, and why aren't the Arab countries more eager to join in with us? And why is Israel just winning one war after another, and yet seemingly besieged on every side? And all of those things are spiritual issues
Come on.
Come
on, James.
That our leaders in Washington
do not understand,
because our churches have been diluted, our schools have been diluted of any form of critical thinking that would give spiritual aspects an even playing field for young minds to consider, and we're just going to pay the price for that. We are totally unprepared for to counter spiritual dynamics, no matter how much firepower we have, no matter how good our intelligence is, no matter what we think in a common sense sort of way should happen, because the spiritual dynamics are involved.
Without a doubt, buddy. Listen, one quick thing, and we had some internet problems here at the beginning of the show tonight, and I've been having them all day, to be honest with you, up here. And there was word this morning that Stryker, that is a medical company, got hacked, and it was an Iranian hack. And I'm wondering tonight, and I don't know if we're the only ones here in the hills. It could be an ATT thing. It could be a number of things, because our reception here is 50-50 sometimes. But when things like this happen on the internet and we're having troubles getting signals and getting to websites, I do wonder sometimes, do you fear, are you concerned that the cyber attack area of Iranian capability, that too is something that nobody is talking about, that they do have the ability to disrupt, if nothing else, disrupt. I remember something that happened, and I'm going to let you go after this because it's almost 11 tonight. But I remember it's been about 10 years ago, and I remember when AT&T went down, they had a major outage, and they wouldn't tell nobody for 2 days. People couldn't have cell phone service. They didn't know what was going on, and they were freaking out. And AT&T finally spilled the goods about 2 days later that their whole network had been hacked, and that's why nobody could call out. Are you concerned that we are possibly, I'm not saying this is what this is tonight, but do you believe that Iran has that capability? They sure had it with Stryker, and they got data, and from what I understand, it was a pretty massive breach. Is that a concern tonight with this?
Yeah, absolutely. It's on the fringes of what I call the dark war. If you if you are fighting, America has overwhelming military advantage against any adversary. Uh, what can that adversary resort to? And in the parlance of intelligence and military planning, we call that asymmetric warfare. And so what they can do are unconventional things that lash out and strike out, since they can't hope to compete on an equal basis on the battlefield. And cyber capabilities give countries such as Iran and groups such as these extremist Muslim groups a capability to cause harm. And there are just, we become such a cyber heavy society that there are any number of vectors that they can get into, and nothing is sacred. They'll shut down hospital systems, you know, and whereas in our Western way of thinking, oh, that's an unfair way to wage war.
That's just
You know,
that's warfare.
to them, it's a way that in to achieve a symmetry of sort against an adversary that has overwhelming power, and we are going to see more and more of that. And let me tell you something too. I was in this world for a while, and so we have no idea the number of attacks that have been repulsed. You know, it's sort of like in a similar sort of way, they've launched these wave after wave of drones. And it doesn't matter if you shoot down 95% of them. There's going to be a certain number that are going to somehow seep through the system to cause harm. Well, in the cyber world, it's the same thing. We have these organizations in Iran, China, and Russia, and other places that are allied with them, because nothing is sacred anymore, right? That are launching all of these attacks for various motives, extending from economic motives to ideological motives. And it is just, at one time, the Pentagon, if I remember right, was like repelling. They had a firewall that was turning back thousands and thousands of cyber attacks a day. And the same thing with the agency I used to be with. They had a firewall that was the same thing. I mean, all of these attacks constantly seeking and probing just a space to get into. For example, this may be a poor one for your listeners. If a group wants to penetrate a typical American family with like porn stuff, what they go to is children's games,
Yeah,
and that provides the entree for them to get into systems and to hack and do whatever they want to.
good point. That's a
And
great point,
and
James.
and we're seeing the same thing because they don't play by the same rules of the game. There's nothing off the table for them. Hospitals is fair game. Uh, um, Infrastructure, water facilities, water
Banks,
treatment facilities,
banks.
banks. What I am afraid of is that we have become so dependent on cyber and computerized things
Yes,
that one day, and it's going to happen on a Friday. Let me predict it. There's going to be a massive shutdown of banking systems, all of their computer systems, and you will not be able to prove you have a penny in your accounts because it's all digital. It's all in the cyber realm.
scary, man. That's scary. Well,
You don't have any hard evidence like you and I have these retirement funds or whatever in these accounts that's compiling interest and this, that, and the other. It's only as good as the digital record says it is. You cannot prove you have anything.
that's a great point.
And there's going to be a time on Friday they're going to figure out a way to do it. The entire banking system's going to go down, and there's going to be just absolute chaos because you can't prove you have a single penny.
That's what terrorism is, isn't it? It's terror.
It is.
It is terrorizing people,
Yes.
and that would scare people if they could not get to their funds. And
Absolutely.
think about
Yes.
the ramifications of also the communications, your phones, not being able to reach your kids not being able to reach you, your schools. James, we would see basically the need for martial law in this country, and that's what they want to push on us. And see, this is what makes this Islamic uprising even more dangerous, because in some parts of the country, again, the leadership that's out there is pulling for our enemy, and they're pushing for our enemy. And that is what makes this conflict right now, I think. And look, I'll be the first to tell you as we wrap this up tonight. When we first started this, I didn't think we were going to be done in a day, but I figured that this was going to be like the summer of 25. Go in there, hit them hard, boom, 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 boom. The Iranians surrender. They, say, look, we want to come to the table now and talk. None of that's happened. And I've been one of those that probably thought this was going to be over with a lot quicker. And with each passing day and with each more these attacks and these suicides, see, this attack on these tankers were basically suicide boats. And it's the same thing of the kamikazes of the Japanese. It's the same thing as the Palestinian suicide bombers of the early 2000s. You can't defend against that. Somebody wants to kill themselves and wrap bombs around themselves and run their boat into your tankers, brother. There ain't much you can do about it if you catch them before they do it. And the horror of it is that a boat approaching you, you don't know whether they've got bombs on them or they don't. And, all it's going to take is one innocent boat to get knocked out of the water, and then the world's going to go up in smoke, and that's what they're hoping for, too. So we're in a pretty dangerous situation tonight, and I hope our people are understanding that this is not Mr. Rogers' neighborhood, and this ain't Barney, this ain't Tiddlywinks, this ain't Monopoly. We're not pass and go. We're not collecting $200 tonight. Look, we got a conflict in the Middle East that's for real, and it's on. And we need to pray, like you've been sort of alluding to tonight. And I appreciate the faith element of what you said a while ago, because there is a remnant. There is a move of God going on. Despite of it, our focus needs to be above. I will say this on the face side. I just pray what is happening is not superficial, that it's sincere, and I guess only time will tell about that. I know that we see a lot of things that are going on, but I think the fruit of it will take time down the road. And I'm not trying to be a killjoy about that, but I think that revival in its history, if you look back on history, there have been some true revivals. There have been some superficial revivals. There have been things that were called revival that wasn't. And I really believe there's a lot of move of God's that have happened on this planet that we're not even aware of, that God's aware of, and that He's done some pretty powerful things without the press. You know, He don't need CNN or Fox to report it for Him to be working. And I could say something about that. But anyway, look, it's been a great time with you. I hope you enjoy your time. We're going to really miss you next week, but I will, we'll be rooting for you to have a good time, and hope you get back and just be safe out there wherever you're going. And we will definitely be praying for your safety, because it's a dangerous world we're in. And even where you're going, I'm sure that things are not going to be as safe as they may have been a month ago before all this stuff started. So just be safe and take care of yourself. Final word, wrap us up, man.
I just so appreciate spending time with you, Chris, and it is worth reminding people that as we sit in the safety of our living rooms and watch TV, and we're enjoying a lifestyle that is unique in the history of the world. That all of this is fragile, and one needs to be prepared for eternity, rather than compiling wealth or people's opinion of themselves in this world. We need to start being otherworldly in terms of our thinking and our objectives in life, and that's easier said than done, I know, but you know, it's getting to be just a dangerous world. And I mean, I'm sort of at the end of my days. It's for my grandchildren that I have a concern. We get together with some of my old uh, bubs that I graduated with, and we talk about the time we were brought up, and what a great place this was to be raised, when everybody sort of had a similarity of values, and this country had a clear notion of where it was going, and why it was blessed the way it was. I see a generation that's sort of losing that. It was just accepted for years and years and years that the next generation would have things better than the previous generation, and I think we're looking at future generations which are not confident at all that that's going to happen anymore, and that's a tragedy for us as a society, and it's a tragedy for my grandchildren. We're spending over $1 billion a day on this war. I'm the biggest supporter of what Trump did. I think that nest of snakes needed to be rooted out. But we are digging ourselves into an economic hole with each passing day that my grandchildren will never be able to dig out of, and that concerns me as much as all of this other stuff that's going on.
Without a doubt, buddy. Without a doubt. I couldn't have said it better. Well, listen, you take care of yourself. I'll be in touch with you, and enjoy your time. And when you get back, me and you and Brad are going to do our panel We've not done a panel in a long time, but we're going to do a panel discussion with you and Johnson, and that's going to be fun. And
yeah. And I only want to know one thing. Is there going to be an empty chair at the table
yes,
for Elvis?
Yes, there will be. And two tickets to the Falcons game. Jerry Glanville used to leave 2 tickets at the window of every Falcons home game when he coached the Falcons. And somebody asked him one day, "Why'd you do that for?" He said, "I'm expecting Elvis to show up and come watch us." Of course, Elvis never picked those tickets up, mind you. So I'm sure that Jerry Glanville was still waiting. He may have, I think he passed away a few years ago, but Jerry was a fun coach. But no, buddy, we will definitely do that. And Johnson, he is a one of a kind man. So we're gonna have a good time when you get back with him. Listen, God bless you, friend. Have a good night. Get some rest up there. I'll see you soon, man. God bless.
Okay, thanks for the opportunity, Chris. Appreciate it.
James,
so much.
You did great tonight. Thank you, buddy. James Akers, everybody, put some fire in that house for him. Look, we had about 630 drop frames at the beginning tonight, folks. I don't know what's causing it. I've been looking at all the parameters. It started this afternoon here at the house, and everything was going fine. We had a perfect Bible study this morning with no problems. And I was working on the computer this afternoon, some other things, and noticed that the connection would come and then go out, come and go out. We've rebooted the internet. We rebooted it 3 times before we started tonight. And so I don't know if it's out there or in here or a combination. I can't see you folks in Facebook. And if you want to, send your questions to McFiles Forum tonight, and we will talk about this tomorrow night. We'll be back on tomorrow night. It'll be me with a new show because it's late. We're not going to get into a lot of video. We'll talk about some of the things that we talked about with James. I do want to come over here to the Newswire page and just show you on the Gateway Pundit tonight, this Michigan synagogue attacker is a naturalized U.S. citizen from Lebanon, Aman Mohammed Gahazli. Now, I'm just a South Georgia boy. I think he's Muslim. Maybe I'm wrong, but I think he's Muslim. And here is the other. Was another attack that happened in Virginia, and we're trying to find that one too. But that's 4. That's 4 attacks that we've seen basically since this Operation Epic Fury has started. That was Bill McGogan right there. And we're going to put a lot of these stories up on our Telegram room and so forth. But, and again, this right here that you see where MSN Now host Katie Tur tries to connect Michigan synagogue attack to Republicans. They do that all the time. He's Muslim. And again, if you're going to be stupid and arrogant and spread lies, pick a struggle, please. Just pick a struggle, please, because we can't handle you being all 3 and dishonest and very sad. But we got a lot to talk about. We'll do that tomorrow night. Now, I want to answer 3 questions I saw that was in the chat briefly. First of all, Gloria, you said you believe that God made sure it was not hit. I am not going to speak for the Lord in that. I don't know. I will tell you that what I believe is going to happen with that Dome of the Rock, this is my opinion. This is my opinion. I believe that the solution to that is going to be found in that covenant of peace that the Antichrist makes with Israel. I think within the confines of that covenant of peace, there is going to be provision for her to build her temple on that place, and he is going to withhold the Arabs. He's going to convince the Arabs this is right, and he's going to have enough deception about him and enough demonic power behind him, they're going to believe him. That's my opinion. It may not be that way, but when you ask a question like that, that's impossible to answer. That's impossible to answer. Nobody knows exactly Look, we tell you this all the time in the Bible study. God either allows something or he causes things directly to happen to his people. And I think it's safe to say tonight that whatever is going on in Israel, God is orchestrating it to bring her back to him. So ultimately, it don't matter whether he didn't allow them to hit it or not. They tried. They hit the tomb of Jesus and they hit other things. This is war. And God has had his hand of protection on Israel really from day one. But let me tell you this, it did not prevent October the 23rd. October the 23rd was a brutal, brutal assault on God's chosen and that land over there. And they're still reeling from it. And they're in the middle of this. Israel is in the middle of this war with us. And to the Jew haters out there tonight, I hope you're proud of yourself. I really do. I hope your mom and dads, if they were listening to you spew the stuff you spew on your telegram rooms and your podcast, that I'm sure your mom and pop would be just tickle pink to hear the rhetoric that you're saying that basically makes the 1938 German propaganda machine look like Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. But anyway, that's another discussion. But Gloria, that's an impossible question to answer. That's just my opinion. Now, Harley, you said your question, is it possible that the majority of Iran doesn't want a regime change? Harley, I'm going to be honest with you. I have to tell you, I said it to James and I'll say it to you. I am not convinced that what emerges after all of this is over, and all of this will come to an end eventually. I do not believe, and I hope I'm proven right, that we're going into a war with Iran with soldiers and boots and things of that nature. I do not believe that we can do that. I think Trump loses the country if we do. I think look, right now, I would say the country's about right at 65-35 supporting it. The 35 that don't are the fringe left, and maybe some rhino Republicans that are just wanting to get headlines, and a bunch of crazy telegrammers that think Trump's the Antichrist. They should be ashamed of themselves too, but that's for a Bible discussion. I get the sense, as bad as this regime was on the Iranians, they're not quite ready to embrace a Western-style democracy. And I think we need to be preparing ourselves that what we're going to get after this is not going to be Disneyland. It ain't going to be Dollywood. And but they've got to make that decision what direction they want for that country. I think it's a legitimate question what you're asking. I think that the Iranian people hold the key. Bibi Netanyahu tonight was basically telling them that. He's like, look, we're fighting, doing everything we can to get these terrorists out of your way. We're doing everything we can to remove the mullahs. Look, there's rumors that Khomeini's son, the current leader of Iran, is dead. Nobody can say yes or no. And it's a job that you don't want to put on your resume because you're likely dead when you apply for it already before you take control of it. Because every time a leader's getting up there, Israel's assassinating them. And I don't think nobody's shedding a tear about it. But we can't even prove that tonight, whether he's alive or not. And what infuriated me today with CNN was we have isolated the propaganda to mainly just tweets and things like that. CNN gave these terrorists a platform. Now, granted, they didn't give them but 4 minutes, but in those 4 minutes, 5 minutes, however long it was, that spokesperson did nothing but spew anti-American hate and anti-Israel hate nonstop and just lie. And y'all remember Baghdad Bob. Baghdad Bob was out there. He was the journalist in Iraq. The Americans were on the doorstop of Baghdad, and he was telling the Iraqi people, Americans are far away. Y'all are safe. There's no American troops on the ground. I mean, just lying through his teeth. And we gave that individual a platform, and that went all over this world, including here in America. That's treason to me. It's just traitors. And when you're dealing with people like that in this country, it just adds a layer of unease to all this. And I think that if we get involved in this too deep, and Iranian people say to America, we're not going to make a change, and they turn on us, then what have we accomplished? We spent a lot of money for nothing. And I'm just being frank with all of you tonight. Look, there are so many scenarios that this can go, and that's why we need to pray really hard. We need to pray really hard for President Trump. We need to pray for our country. We need to pray for Israel. And we need to pray for the Iranian people to make the right decision. And that's really ultimately all we can do. But I'll leave it at that. It was a good question. Very good question. And let me see here. Who was it? Preacher Man. 297. You say, do you believe this is Jeremiah 49:34 through 39 coming to pass? No. Preacher Man, I tell you what it is doing, though. It is setting the stage for it to come to pass later. It's not the actual fulfillment of it, but it is an echo. If you were with us last night, and we mentioned this on one of the Bible studies this week, anything that is prophesied, folks, in those Old Testament passages of the Old Testament prophets, ultimately, they cannot take place until Israel is fully back in her land, number one. Number two, she's restored fully as a nation, which she's not going to be until Christ comes back. And number three, the other variable is the church. I am one of these that teach that, and we're going to deal with this Wednesday night. So, Preacher Man, if you want to join us, our Wednesday night Bible study coming up, we're going to address this head on, because the timing on all this is always suspect. And the timing on it is always up for debate, and nobody knows the timing of any of these things. So we certainly don't know when Jesus is coming back for the church and the resurrection of the saints, but I think it's pretty plain to see that the earth is trembling right now, and the earth is shaking, and things are going on in the Middle East that would give us reason to believe it's soon. Now, we can't put a time on soon. We can't put a date or whatever, but I do believe that we're in the last of the last days. I do. But anything that takes place now is merely a precursor and the beginning of the sorrows. A Distant Thunder. There was a movie out in the late 70s by a group of evangelicals in Iowa, and they put out this series of movies called A Thief in the Night, A Distant Thunder, and I can't think of, it was a trilogy, and I can't think of the third one, but it was basically a movie about the events on earth after the rapture of the church. It was for 70s standards, it was a pretty powerful group of movies. I know what, I watched it when I was about 12 years old, and I didn't sleep for about a week or two. And I tell you what, I remember that week I got up at night. There would be times I'd get up in the night. It scared me so much as a 12-year-old that I would go into my mom and dad's bedroom, and I would make sure they were still there. And I got to say something about that. Maybe that's what is missing in this generation. Nobody fears that no more. We don't have any fear of God in this country. It's part of the reason why we're in the spiritual abyss we're in, but I'll leave that one alone for now. Everything hinges on the church being removed. Once the church is removed, Preacher Man, every prophecy in that old covenant is going to come to pass. Every single one of them. You're not the first that's asked that question. I've had 3 other people ask me that question. And ultimately, I guess we'll just have to see, but that's what I believe. I do believe it is going to come to pass. It is still yet future. I believe it's going to take place somewhat in the tribulation, but the kingdom age, when Israel comes back into that land and is saved, everything is going to take place as it's been predicted. There's not going to be one single prophecy in the Old Covenant that is not going to come to pass. The timing on it is when the focus of Bible prophecy, though, is on Israel. The church tonight, neighbor, our job is the harvest. Once we're removed, everything shifts to Israel. She is the key to all Bible prophecy and her restoration, because that's what all this is about. When you get down to it, everything that's happening in Iran tonight, everything that's happening in the Middle East, everything that's happening here in America, everything that's happening in Israel. It's pushing her closer and closer and closer and closer to her Creator and her Redeemer and coming back to Him. But before she does that, she is going to go through a 7-year period of literal hell where 2/3 of the Jewish race are going to be basically eliminated on this earth. It's going to be one of the worst holocausts this world's ever seen. It's going to make the first Holocaust look like peanuts. So that's my opinion, preacher man. I hope that answers your question a little bit. Carol Smith, good to see you. You says, do you think the main reason Trump went in was to stop Iran bombing us, yet media seems more concerned with gas prices, least of our problems? Carol, I think it was, perhaps it was the bombing thing. I think he was concerned about Iran getting the nuke bomb. I think that his biggest concern was that he evidently saw intel. My opinion, I think there was intel given to him that, and I think it came from his son-in-law, and it came from Witkoff. They went to that meeting with Iran a week before all this started, and the Iranians mocked us to our face and basically told Witkoff and Kushner, said, we got enough. Y'all think you destroyed all our material back in June? And he basically laughed at Witkoff and Kushner and said, we got enough material to make 11 bombs right now. Now, whether he was bluffing, which there's a possibility he was lying, I think Trump took him seriously. And I think Trump said, that's it. I've got to move. And I'm with you on the second part of your question and your comment. The media, and there's a lot of Christians out there, people that are belly aching about the cost of living tonight, belly aching about their egg prices, belly aching about their gas prices. And you've got our nation stuck in the Middle East war, or in a Middle East war, in the most prophetic place of the Bible. And you're right, it's the least of our problems is our gas. It ain't going to matter if our country is blown to smithereens. And folks, these sleeper cells, listen, what makes these sleeper cells so dangerous tonight too, look, it's not beyond the possibility. I don't know if any of you've ever seen the movie The Sum of All Fears. There's a movie back, I guess 2002, maybe 2003. Morgan Freeman and Ben Affleck was in it, and who else was in that movie? There were several actors and actresses, but it was basically what it was about a sleeper cell, a Russian sleeper cell that snuck a nuclear bomb into Baltimore. And what they were going to do is detonate the nuke and blame it on Russia, knowing that America would retaliate to Russia with a nuke, and then the two countries would destroy themselves. That was the master plan. I do not doubt tonight that is in the mind of some groups and rogue agents and rogue agencies out there tonight in this world that would like to see no better scenario than that happen. That America just destroy each other and we get in fight with other nations and destroy each other. That's what they want us to do. So it's the least of their problems, my friend. You're right. I don't think I should be too concerned about gas prices. We better be concerned about the safety of this country, and we better be alert. I love you all dearly tonight, and I'm about to let you go here, but you need to be alert in your surroundings. I'm not telling you to walk around in abject fear and chicken little and the sky's falling down. We don't say this to scare you. We use it to prepare you, just like we did the weather the other night. And we just heard today that there has been finally one confirmed death in that storm in Kankakee, Illinois. That was an absolute monster. It's probably going to be an EF3 or EF4 storm. And I study this, and we study the weather and so forth. And I'm going to try if I can get a picture of that. Here it is right here. I'm going to bring this into the screen. That's the tornado we were trying to show you Tuesday night, but couldn't. That thing is probably almost a quarter, maybe a half mile wide. And that picture there probably doesn't even do it justice. I've seen other images of it. That's a massive storm. That's the second major tornado that we've had, and it's really been the second major outbreak. We're going to talk about that a little bit tomorrow night on the show, the weather. We got our dear friend Anthony Cavalucci, hopefully tomorrow night with us on a pre-recorded interview. We interview him in the morning, and we're going to talk about the spring storm season and some other things. We'll keep you updated on Iran, and we'll have other guests. James will not be with us next week. He's going out of the country, him and his beautiful wife. But we will have Brad Johnson coming Tuesday night, and we will have others trying to get Eric Karen back, and our dear friend Jeannie Cannell, former FBI agent, and other law enforcement folks to talk about the things that are going on, and some faith shows. Monday night is our big show that I want you to make sure you're with us. Sherry Caudell, it's going to be a faith special Monday night. We're going to try to, hopefully this internet will be working better by then. The devil's been attacking us all day, and I know some of it is what we're going to be doing tomorrow night and Monday, but I will tell you, you don't want to miss Monday night. If you got a lost loved one, please have them listening to the show. Please have them listening to the show. We were going to be honoring the 50-year anniversary of the book, A Divine Revelation of Hell. And Sherry is a dear friend of Catherine's, and was up to her death. And she's going to be with us to talk about her legacy. And you don't want to miss this. And we're going to play excerpts of her book Monday night along with that, and so forth. That book chronicles a 30-night journey into the pit of hell every night. And it was probably one of the first publicly recorded books. I know there's a lot of people that have written books since, but Mary Catherine's was unique. It was probably the first one that was put out in the publishing world like it, and there was never an account. If you've read that book and listened to that book, these stories are not, you just, when you read them, you would have to have a cold heart, a complete reprobate mind, not to listen to that book and believe it's true. And I'll just leave it at that. There are some that do. There's some that don't believe it. But we're going to honor her memory, because these events, it was going on right now, 50 years ago this week, 50 years ago last week. It started, she said, at 1st of March, it lasted 30 days. 30 days and 30 nights. We're going to talk about it Monday night, and we want you to be with us. Listen, we hope you've enjoyed the show tonight. James Akers was great, and thank you all for being with us tonight. Let me make sure we don't have any other questions. Mark, he says, agree with the rapture. That's good to know, Mark. Good to see you tonight. Stephen says, I wonder if God might allow us to lose our freedoms because of complaining Christians. Stephen, let me tell you something. We're all complaining. I understand your statement, but we all complain. We all complain. If he makes us lose our freedoms, it ain't just going to be because of somebody else. It's going to be because of all of us. We'll all have an accountability in this. I think the church is silence, and I think that, there's much more we all can do right now to pray and to seek God's face and pray for our country. Pray. That's why we're doing these watches. We're doing this Watch of the Lord tomorrow night. It comes at a very important time that we pray for this nation and pray against this darkness. And it's those complaining Christians, Stephen, is me and you. We're both. We're all guilty of it in some way or form. So I understand your question, but I wouldn't put it on everybody else. I think we all need to look in the mirror tonight and say, Lord, what can I do? What more can I do for your kingdom right now? What can I do to stand in the gap and let the Lord worry about the other complaining Christians? That's just a thought, buddy. But it's good to see you tonight. Good to see you. Let me see here. Do I get... Facebook has not come up yet. I don't know what's causing that. But anyway, listen, you Facebook folks, we love you tonight. We just can't see your questions. I know you probably put a lot in there. Send them to us at McFiles Forum. We'll try to get to them tomorrow night and so forth. God bless you. God bless your families. God bless this great nation of America. Please pray for Israel. Pray for our president. Pray for all these things tonight. And give James Akers a lot of fire in that house for a great show tonight with us. And we hope you've enjoyed it. We sure have enjoyed it with you. Have a good night out there, and God bless. We'll hopefully we get this, find out what the gremlins are on the internet tomorrow. But please pray for these people that have been, the families of these killed in these terrorist attacks around our country, folks. There's been 4 since Operation Fury, and I believe that more is coming, and we need to pray for our nation. God bless you out there. Have a good night. Take care.